Okay. Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to the FCCJ this evening. It's a great pleasure to be presenting the Freedom of the Press Awards again. I'll keep my remarks very short, but 3 years ago I was elected president of the FCCJ, and one of my priorities was freedom of the press. As the situation gets worse around the world for people in the media reporting dangerous situations and difficult situations, I feel it's our responsibility here in Japan, where we're relatively safe, to celebrate these journalists. So let's move on now to some comments from our outgoing president, Peter Elstrom.
We have a gavel. All right, we can call the meeting to order. Thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you everybody for joining us here today. First of all, I would say just a note of promotion for the FCCJ. I think everybody knows this. It is the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan, but you do not need to be a correspondent and you do not need to be non-Japanese to be able to join. It is open to all members. So if you're interested in membership, you can certainly see the people at the front desk, or you can see Iwamura-san here, who is helping us out. So please stop in there. We welcome new members. We would love to have you join us. These are my last days as president of the FCCJ. It's an honor to follow after Isabel and our other presidents before this. Being able to be here tonight to present the Freedom of Press Awards really is a special pleasure. This is really what we do. It's what we care about at the FCCJ. And really, since the club's founding in 1945, freedom of the press has been at the heart of what the club stands for. Back then, correspondents from around the world had to navigate the U.S. General Douglas MacArthur or the post-war Japanese government to write about what was happening during Reconstruction. It was a sensitive time. And if anything, freedom of the press is now under assault more than ever before. We see it in autocracies like China and Russia, but we also see it in democracies, including India, the United States, and Japan. In China, the Communist Party has constructed a censorship machine staffed by tens of thousands of people that has succeeded in restricting the free flow of information online and in the general media, something that nobody thought could be done before. Those government practices are supplemented by intimidation of news organizations and tech companies. Bloomberg and other media have seen their journalists detained, in some cases jailed for months, with no public explanation and no public charges. This opacity is precisely the point. It's designed to intimidate and silence journalists and the general public. In Russia, the Wall Street Journal's Evan Gershkovich has been detained for 115 days as of today. I think everybody's aware of his situation. Putin's regime has accused him of spying when in fact he was simply doing what journalists do every day, reporting on the facts. At least he has a major news organization behind him that has kept this injustice in public view. But for every Evan Gershkovich, there are hundreds of other reporters who suffer in obscurity. Just this June, a Bangladeshi journalist was dragged into an alley by a group of men and beaten with bricks and wooden rods. He died the next day. The attack was allegedly the result of the reporter's stories about local politicians. In May, a Filipino broadcaster was shot on the street at least 5 times and died at the scene. In February, an Indian journalist was hit by an SUV and dragged under the vehicle to his death. The alleged killer had been exposed in a series of stories for illegally grabbing land and intimidating locals opposed to the construction of an oil refinery. The situation here in Japan is different. As Isabella said, we think of it as a relatively free press. However, the media is often contained through intense cultural pressures and libel laws that are very, very favorable to plaintiffs. That has led to domestic press that at times is complicit in the face of wrongdoing, staying silent rather than exposing some of the bad actors. That's going to transition us into our first award of the evening. Ilgen, can I go ahead and jump into that, or do you want to say something before we dive into the awards?
Absolutely, please go ahead.
Okay, so our first category for awards here tonight is the Japan Prize candidates. We are going to have a joint winner. I'll announce one of them, and I think Isabella is going to announce the second one.
Randy.
Oh, Randy's going to announce the second one. Excuse me. So the first of the joint winners I will highlight are Megumi Inman and Mobeen Azar of the BBC for their work on the documentary Predator. This is a look at Johnny Kitagawa, think they're going to say some words about it. But this was a story that was kind of an open secret in Japan for many years, if not decades, not completely ignored by the local press, but largely ignored by the local press. And their BBC documentary brought it to the fore again, shined a spotlight on this, and fortunately the FCCJ was able to support them in a number of occasions where the victims came here to speak about that. Anyway, so the first award goes to them. I'm not sure, are they online?
I believe they're both online, I hope.
Okay.
Could we have someone unmute them?
Hello.
Oh, great. Hello.
Hi, can you
Thank you
hear
for joining
us?
us. Yes.
Hi
Hello.
there.
Welcome. And please, with that, we'll turn it over to you if you'd like to say a few words.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. So I'm Meg Meehan, the producer-director of this film. Both Mabine and I would like to just say a few words. First of all, we're so grateful to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan, not only for this award, but for their ongoing support in keeping this story alive. And we'd like to thank Sarah Waldron, Nancy Roberts, and the rest of the team who worked so hard to make Predator the secret scandal of J-pop. As journalists that are not resident in Japan, we are aware of accusations of parachute journalism. To the contrary, we've been humbled by the response in Japan. Whilst much of the press have struggled or failed to cover the story of Kitagawa's abuse, since the film's release, it has started a national conversation. And I'd like to hand over to Mabine now, who will say a few words on how this national conversation is playing out.
Thank you, Megumi, and hello, and thank you to everyone at the FCCJ. You'll be aware that Kishida has said that he will hold a ministerial meeting regarding the conduct of Johnny and Associates and the subject of exploitation more broadly. You may also be aware that the United Nations is going to be conducting field research into workplace exploitation as well. They've been in touch with us. I think they're due to land in Tokyo next week, actually. I want to say all this has only been possible because of the bravery and the testimony of survivors of abuse. So to the people that spoke to us and the people that continue to speak out, and in fact, to perhaps survivors of abuse who are thinking about speaking out, we want to express our absolute solidarity and respect. It is only through making your voices heard that change comes about. And right now, I really believe Japan and a lot of the world is listening to you. So please continue to speak out. We are profoundly grateful to Yanai-san and Nakamura-san at the publication Bunshun, who began covering this story decades ago. I want to say to them, I don't know if they're here, but I want to say to them, your perseverance and your tenacity has really paid off. And it is an example to all of us. It's an example to journalists around the world. So to all of you and to the FCCJ, I'm so grateful and thank you for this award.
Thank you so much, both of you, for your words. I don't know if we can get the trophy and just show it in front of the camera so you can see what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to.
Mabine, can we take this? This is a certificate.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if you can see these from where you are, but this is what we'll be sending to you. And congratulations again for your great work on this.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do get to clap. Second, do you want to, Randy's going to come up and take my part. Randy's going to
Yeah, that'd be great. If we have time, we're probably running quite short of time, but I hope so.
So the Companion Joint Award Japan Award goes to Shukan Bunshun, which is a weekly Japanese news magazine that was first published in 1959, and it's known for its investigative journalism and frequent clashes with the Japanese government. It's considered one of the most influential weekly magazines in Japan. In 2001, Shukan Bunshun ran a series of sexual harassment allegations against talent agency founder Johnny Kitagawa of Johnny and Associates. Shukan Bunshun was the only media outlet willing to publish such allegations at the time, especially since Kitagawa was known to have a strong control over the entertainment industry. In fact, Johnny and Associates sued Shukan Bunshun for defamation, and in 2002, the Tokyo District Court actually ruled in favor of Kitagawa. Now, over 20 years later, and after the death of Johnny Kitagawa in 2019, the story of Kitagawa's decades-long sexual misconduct with his underage clients has finally received worldwide attention. And so the FCCJ's second joint winner for the Japan Award is hereby presented to Shukan Bunshun.
Okay, would you like to come up? We're going to have remarks in Japanese this time, and I hope that Chie Matsumoto, a great friend of the club, will stand in as a sort of pinch hitter as interpreter this time. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not good English speaker, so ここから日本語で喋ります。週刊文春はBBC のドキュメンタリーをきっかけに、この春から長い取材を始めました。今発売の週刊文春で第18弾となります。これまで、被害を受けた人々の証言者は25人になりまして、その年代は1950年代から2010年代にまで上ります。
Shukan Bunshun was encouraged by BBC documentary, and this spring we started reporting, starting another reporting series, and the 18th episode is in the magazine that is sold, that is at the store right now. We have interviewed, we have had 25 witnesses, testimonials, that actually spreads across 1950s to 2010s.
被害者の年齢は、下は7歳から18歳でした。取材当初はなかなか実名で取材に応じてくれる人がいなくて、最初は A さん、B さん、C さんと報じるしかありませんでした。
The interviewees, the victims' age range from 7 years old to 18 years old. And at the beginning, at the time of reporting, there were many victims who refused to identify themselves and who only agreed to interviews under anonymity.
状況がガラリと変わったのは、まさにここで4月12日にカウアン岡本さんが実名で記者会見を行ったことに、がきっかけでした。
And what changed drastically the situation was the interview, the press conference by Mr. Kawan Okamoto, who had the press conference here on April 12th.
その1週間前に週刊文春で彼をインタビューして記事が出たんですけども、その時に彼にここでインタビューをしようという提案をして彼が受け入れてくれました。
This was now Mr. Kawan Okamoto actually spoke here with his real name, but a week before that, Shukan Bunshun actually interviewed him for our article, and we actually asked him if he agreed to a press conference here at FCCJ, and he agreed.
なぜここを選んだかというと、日本のメディアが報じてくれる可能性が低いって考えたことと、 ここであるならば海外のメディアが報じてくれるだろうし、それによって結果的に日本のメディアも報じるだろうという狙いがありました。
Now, the reason why we decided to have a press conference here at FCCJ is that we already knew that there was very little chance that Japanese press would report on this press conference. And if we had a conference here, overseas media will probably report on it, and the Japanese media will follow their suit.
ご存知のように、彼の記者会見からニュースが世界中に広がって、日本でもこれまで報じてこなかった新聞やテレビが大きく報じてくれました。私たちは、これまで報じてこなかった日本の新聞やテレビの責任は非常に大きいと思っています。
As you know, this press conference actually led to worldwide news reporting, and even the Japanese media, Japanese TVs and newspapers that totally ignored it for years have picked up the reports. Now, this we believe at Bunshun, we believe that this is a Japanese media. The responsibility of Japanese media is very heavy.
なぜなら被害者に話を聞くと、なぜ今まで声を上げなかったということを聞くとですね、これまでもいくつかの本で元ジャニーズジュニアだったりジャニーズのタレントが、ジャニー氏からの性被害を告発してるんだけども、それが全く取り上げてこなかったという事実があるので、自分が声を上げても握りつぶされるだろうということでした。
Now, when we asked the victims why they have not spoken up about their experiences, their harassment, they all said Johnny's juniors or Johnny's talent. They have actually been accusing this sexual harassment at Johnny's office. However, their stories have not been picked up by Japanese media, and that's why they thought that all these stories have been crushed and have been ignored, and that's why they could not speak up.
結果、被害者の声は世間に広がらず、被害者がまたどんどん増えていく結果になりました。だから日本のメディアの責任はとても大きいと考えています。
As a result, victims' voices did not get picked up or did not get heard, or the public didn't hear the voices. And as a result, the number of victims actually increased. And therefore, we believe that the Japanese media have a serious responsibility.
最後にジャニーズ事務所についても少し触れます。私たちは被害者を取材するたびに、事実確認のために、そのために質問を送りましたが、彼らが質問に応じることは一度もありませんでした。
Lastly, I would like to mention a little bit about Johnny's office. We have every time we interviewed a victim, we sent a list of questions to the office, to the agency, but we have never received a response.
残念ながら今も日本の芸能界において若い男性や女性が権力のある人からの性的搾取を受けるということはまだ現実に続いています。
Unfortunately, in Japanese show business, there are many young men and women who are still suffering from violence, sexual violence and sexual assault from people who are very powerful.
今回の報道が少しでも彼らのような被害者を生まない、これからの世界につながっていくことを強く願っています。ありがとうございました。
We hope that this series of reporting will contribute even a little bit to stop further victimization, further sexual harassment, and we hope that our efforts is going to pay off. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hand over without putting fingerprints.
Well, first, and I don't have white gloves.
Drop it. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We also, in this category for Japan, we have an honorable mention. Obviously, the Johnny's story, while it was a very big one, was not the only thing that's been happening in Japan in the last year or so. Following the tragic assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe last July, it was learned that the man arrested and charged with the murder, Tetsuya Yamagami, had been angry at Mr. Abe over his ties to the Unification Church, officially known as the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. Yamagami blamed the church for destroying his family after his mother joined, giving it millions of yen in donations and forcing them into bankruptcy. Yamagami's arrest and his subsequent revelations did two things. First, they exposed the plight of second-generation church followers and the struggles they faced. Second, they exposed as never before the decades-long connections between the church and the political world, especially the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. In the summer and autumn of last year, Japanese mainstream newspapers and television probed both issues on a daily basis, and it was to one of Japan's most knowledgeable and experienced freelance journalists and experts on the church they often turned for answers and analysis. That is Suzuki Eito-san. Since 2009, Suzuki has covered the activities of cults and kept his eye on the Unification Church in particular, documenting its means of recruitment, financing, its abusive treatment of members and their families, and tracking how the church exercises political influence and which politicians are close to it. Before former Prime Minister Abe's murder, Suzuki's writings appeared in a few select weekly magazines, but did not receive widespread media coverage. After the assassination, Suzuki was and remains much in demand, appearing on a daily basis on multiple mainstream media outlets. Last year, he also released a best-selling book that summarized his reporting on the relationship between the LDP and the church. He recently has followed that book up with Jiminto no Toitsu Kyokai Osen Ni, which looks at all that has happened since the Abe assassination more than a year ago. Particularly with Yamagami and the LDP politicians who are trying very hard to put the scandal behind them. The FCCJ is very proud to award the 223 Freedom of the Press Award for Japan honorable mention to Suzuki-san. Suzuki-san, could you come up?
Thank you very much. My name is Eito Suzuki. 僕もここから日本語で行かせていただきます。今回こんな賞をいただいてありがとうございました。
Thank you very much for this award.
はい、自分がこの安倍政権、自民党政権と統一教会の問題を追い出したのは2013年7月、本当ちょうど10年前になります。
When I started following Abe administration or LDP administration, this was July 2013, which is about 10 years, exactly 10 years ago.
はい、それはですね、当時の安倍晋三首相、そして菅義偉官房長官、この2人が統一教会と裏取引をしていたという、教団の内部資料、あと内部情報を得たことが、きっかけでした。
Now, how I started this reporting is at the time I had this, I acquired this information that was behind the scenes that was dealt with at the Unification Church, and this was regarding then Prime Minister Abe and Cabinet Secretary Suga. They had connections with Unification Church.
はい、当時から僕はやや日刊カルト新聞オールモストデイリーカルトニュースという、ウェブサイトを、今日も来ている藤倉義郎さんとジャーナリストとやってたんですけれども、この問題はもっと一般紙でちゃんと社会に問いたいと思って、いろんなメディアに、企画を持っていったんですけれども、唯一週刊朝日だけが、興味を持ってくれました。
Now, at the time, I was running almost daily cult news, which I run with journalist Yoshiro Fujikura, who is also here attending. And we thought that this was a very important issue, and so we wanted to actually have the general news media to pick up this story and ask to inform the public. And so we actually took the story to various newspapers and media, and the only one that agreed to feature it is Shukan Asahi.
はい、ただその週刊朝日の記事も何回か書いたんですけど反響が全くなかったんですね。でさらにその後のウェブメディアでも連載をしたんですけれども、一部で評価は得たんですけれども、社会には全くこの問題がほぼ広く広まるってことはありませんでした。
Now we have Shukan Asahi actually publicized the story. However, we had almost no reaction whatsoever after the story was out, and we kept reporting on this on our website or web news media. However, there was very little reaction, and in society too, people were not very interested.
そんな中でいろいろ出版の企画も出版社に持ち込んだんですけど、どこも快い返事をくれなくてですね、でほぼ僕は各場を失っていたんです。その時に起きたのが安倍晋三銃撃暗殺事件でした。
Now, I wanted to actually publish this story, and so I approached several publishing companies. However, none showed interest, and so I was slowly starting to lose a place to write. And this is when the Abe former Abe Prime Minister was shot.
はい、で犯人の山上徹也は統一教会の被害者でした。でこの事件にやっぱり特徴的なのがカルト団体の被害者が、重大な社会事件を起こしたことにつきます。
Now, the suspect Tetsuya Yamagami was a victim of Unification Church, and I think this case, what's important is this was committed by the victim of cult group.
はい、メディアがやっぱり権力者を監視できていない状況の中で、こういうカルト団体と政治家が深く付き合うこと、これのチェックができていなかった、これがやっぱり事件が起こった一つの大きな要因になったと思っています。
Now, this happened actually. This was caused because the Japanese media, did not monitor the relationship between Unification Church and the politics or the politicians. They failed to check the relationship and the power relationship, and that's why this happened. It was all in the interest that media did not. Interest was not there, and the politicians and Unification Church, between Unification Church and the politicians.
はい、それが銃撃によって可視化をされた。で結局その事件後に僕の存在がクローズアップされることになったんですけど、特徴的に僕が気をつけたのが情報を独占しなかったことなんですね。紹介があった僕に連絡を取ってきたメディアにはもう惜しげなくデータをすべて無料で提供してきました。
Now, the shooting, everything came out in the open, and it was disclosed. And so that's why the focus was on me. I had all the information, and I think the point of it is that I gave the information that I have. I didn't keep the information that I had. To any media who wanted to acquire this information, I gave them for free.
はい、僕は多くのメディアがこの問題に興味を持ってくれたことが単純に嬉しかったんですね。本当にワンチームジャパン的な形で多くのメディアがもう僕は個人的に追ってきたネタをこんなにいっぺんにみんな追求してくれたんだっていうところが単純に、僕はありがたかったです。で大手メディアの取材力の凄さも改めて認識しました。
Now, at this point, I was simply very glad that a lot of different media became interested in this subject. The one subject that I have continued to chase after and report. Now I felt like we were all in one team. Team Japan was actually chasing and investigating this. And individually, I was really happy. I was grateful that everybody became interested in it and reporting it. And this is when I was really impressed with how powerful and how much power, how much capacity the mainstream media have.
はい、ちょっと長くなるとあるので、最後2点だけ。まだ問題解決してないんですね。本来追及されるべき大物政治家がまだ何も追及されないまま残っています。まずそれが1点。
Now, I would want to keep it short, so I will point out 2 points. One, this issue is not yet completely solved. There are still very powerful politicians who are not held accountable.
はい、もう一点、勇気ある告発者の保護、先ほどのジャニーズの文春さんの話もそうなんですけれども、カウアン・オカモトさんであるとか、他の大勢の被害者、そしてここで会見をした統一教会元2世の小川さゆりさん、そういう人たちに対する誹謗中傷がひどいんですね。そういう人たちをいかにちゃんと守っていくかっていうところも我々に課せられた使命だと思います。そういう点でもこういう形で、僕のやってきたことが評価をされたってことは、そういう方たちを守る力にも自分はなっていきたいと思うので、そういう点でも非常にありがたいと思っています。ありがとうございます。
Now, of course, this was made. Point number 2 I would like to make is this was made possible because there were brave victims who courageously came out and made testimonials, the witnesses. For instance, earlier on, there was Mr. Kawan Okamoto who had a press conference here, and other victims of Unification Church in this case, and also the second generation Unification Church followers, Ms. Ogawa Sayuri, who also had a press conference here. But these are the people who are now suffering from defamation and harsh slandering, and we have to figure out how to protect them, and this should be our mission. And I think, in a word such as this that I received today from FCCJ is going to become the power and influence, the power to protect them in the future.
I don't know if we will actually. We're actually running rather late. Sorry. Okay, we're going to move on now to the Asia Awards, and the next presentation will be from our outgoing second Vice President at the FCCJ, Ilgun Yorulmaz. Ilgun, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. This is Ilgun Yorulmaz, second Vice President currently, outgoing Vice President, and the current co-chair of the Freedom of the Press Committee. Thank you so much for being here online or in the room. I'm terribly sorry I am not in the room due to a family health issue. And I'm terribly sorry also for the state of my face because I've had an eye operation just 2 days ago. So if I have to take off my glasses to read my remarks, I apologize for it profusely. It has been exactly 1 year and 2 months since the Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akle was shot dead by an Israeli Defense Force soldier in the early morning of May 11th, 2022, while covering an Israeli raid in a refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. Shireen was one of the 67 members of the press killed last year, according to the annual report from the Committee to Protect Journalists around the world. a 50%, that's 50% increase from the year before. No one has yet been prosecuted formally, and no disciplinary action has been taken by the military so far for the tragic loss of a talented journalist and the wounding of her colleague, the producer Ali Al-Samoudi. Both Shireen and Ali were wearing helmets and protective vests, clearly marked press, on a deserted street that morning. The 51-year-old Shireen, who reported for Al Jazeera, had initially studied architecture but switched to journalism. She became one of the Arab world's most prominent TV journalists, a reporting legend, as some would say. One of Shireen's dearest friends from the early 1990s, the veteran Palestinian journalist Rula Salameh, says she has seen countless journalists come and go from the region, but, quote, Shireen spent 30 years in the trenches, devoting her life to the dangerous and draining work of reporting on Palestine, even as the situation on the ground grew progressively dark, end of quote. The Palestinian Journalists Syndicate reports that an estimated 50 Palestinian journalists have been killed in the region since 2000. Recently, times have become even more dark and dangerous for journalists in the Middle East. In fact, we have just this month military operations by Israel in Jenin, its largest in 20 years. Meanwhile, the United Nations has warned the sides that violence in occupied territories risks spiraling out of control. Had she been alive, Shireen would certainly have been on the ground again to cover the story. FCCJ is proud to present Shireen Abu Akle posthumously the 2023 Freedom of the Press Asia Award for her courage and commitment to document the full story of the Palestinian people, not just their suffering, but also their hopes and dreams. I now invite Al Jazeera Palestine Bureau Chief Walid Al-Omari online to join us from Nazareth. Shireen's other colleagues, such as Fadi Salameh, the Al Jazeera Japan correspondent and an FCCJ member, are also all waiting for us in the Al Jazeera newsroom in Doha, Qatar. Al-Omiri-san will accept his award on behalf of Shireen and all the journalists around the world who made the ultimate sacrifice for a free press and the public's right to know. Walid, are you there?
Hello?
Yes. Aha. Hello, welcome.
Yes, it's clear now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to us that you present the 2023 Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan Freedom of the Press Asia Award to our dearest colleague, the late Shireen Abu Akle of Al Jazeera, on behalf of all the journalists who gave their lives while covering important stories in Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank you all that you choosing and honoring our dear martyr Shireen, who was killed by the Israeli occupation soldiers in Jenin in the early morning of the 11th of May in 2022. We filed the case of Shireen to the International Criminal Court in the 6th of last December, and we're still waiting that the international prosecutor to act, and until now he didn't act at all. We demand justice for Shireen, and this means first that we want to hold the killer accountable, second that we want to protect ourselves as journalists in general, and Palestinians and the Al Jazeera journalists in particular, because we want to continue overtaking our professional duties and covering all the news in our region. Second thing, it's important for us to let all the world to understand, the international community, the ICC and Israel, especially Israel, that Israel can no longer continue acting in impunity when it's continue killing Palestinian journalists. After the killing of Shireen Abu Akle, 20 days after the killing of Shireen Abu Akle, they also killed a young female Palestinian journalist called Zafran Warasni in the area of Hebron. Since the first day of the Israeli occupation to the Palestinian territories in June 1967, 104 Palestinian journalists were killed since that time, and nobody held accountability about that. Second thing, it's important here to mention that Shireen was with her colleagues in Jenin in the 11th of May. They were, first of all, as you mentioned before, they doing their job very well. And the Israeli soldiers, they can distinguish them as a journalist because they wearing the helmets labeled press, they wearing the vests labeled press also, and the distance between them and the Israeli soldiers, something like 180. But when they killed Shireen, and before that, they injured Ali Samoudi, who was with Shireen. They hit her here in this area, behind the left ear, in this area that's not protected by the helmet and not protected by the vest, which means Shireen was targeted by the Israeli soldiers. Second thing, it's very important to know that in that time, wasn't there any exchange of fire? Wasn't there any Palestinian armed people? Wasn't there any protesters? The situation was calm at all. According to all the investigative reports, we have a lot of investigative reports. We have a lot of videos. We have more than 10 eyewitnesses. All of them, they confirm the fact that Shireen was far from the soldiers and the situation was calm. And when they start shooting, they shot her, they targeted her. And after she was failed under the carob tree in the area, they continue shooting while her colleague trying to save her. And it was very difficult for them. And the important thing here that the effects of the Israeli bullets in the carob tree ranged between 127 centimeters and 178 centimeters, which means that the sniper who was attacking and shooting, was shooting to kill. This is very important to know, because at least this is the fact. And when we demand justice for Shireen, I mean that Israel must understand that can no longer continue acting with impunity and sympathy from the international community. For us, it's very important. Shireen was iconic. Shireen was recognizable. She was a household name everywhere in the Palestinian territories and the Arab world. And everyone knew her very well. Since that time until now, we're just waiting to see that the prosecutor, the international prosecutor, and the ICC acting, moving ahead, opening investigation, or the international prosecutor coming to the region just to investigate or to hear the witnesses what they are saying about this issue. This is everybody must understand that journalists cannot taking over their professional duties when they targeted by the soldiers or the settlers, and they doing their job in very dangerous situation and in this risk. For that, first, let me again thank you very much for your award to Shireen. And I hope that by this action and other actions, we can do something more for Shireen and for other colleagues everywhere in this world. It's amazing how many from our colleagues sacrifice their lives while they trying to take over their professional duties in many areas, and especially in the Palestinian territories in this conflict with the Israeli occupation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your heartfelt comments. I'm just going to hold up the certificate again for Shireen, so I hope you can see it online. This is what we'll be sending in her honor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Right. I'd like to move on now to the honourable mention for Asia. And that will be introduced by Eric Johnston, who I believe is with us online. Can we unmute
Yes,
Eric?
hello.
Oh, you're there. Great.
Yes, I'm here. So, good evening, everyone. I apologize for not being in Tokyo this evening, but it's an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to announce that the winner for this year's Asia Prize honorable mention is the Foreign Correspondents Club of China. Many FCCJ members are, of course, familiar with FCCC, but I want to talk about just a little bit, why did we choose them? And Peter mentioned a couple of things in his introduction, but rather than refer to various international rankings of China's level of freedom of expression or recent news clippings about foreign journalists forced to leave the country, sometimes at the very last minute after angry authorities, let's take a look at the on-the-ground situation as the FCCC sees it. Here are a few randomly selected numbers from their 2022 report on the situation for those covering China on a daily basis. It was conducted in December and January of this year, and it includes the responses of 102 of the 166 FCCC members. So in 2022, 63% of FCCC members experienced some kind of reporting obstruction, nominally attributed to COVID prevention measures, although those measures were not applied to ordinary Chinese citizens. 56 of respondents said they were obstructed at least once by police or other officials during 2022, and that was down compared to 62% the previous year. 50% said they were disrupted by the authorities while conducting interviews. 38% said at least one of their sources had been harassed, detained, called in for questioning by the authorities, or otherwise suffered negative consequences for interacting with foreign journalists. And most frighteningly, the share of respondents who said they were subjected to manhandling or use of physical force remained high, 14%, up from 12% in 2021. Targeting and intimidation of foreign journalists remained the same as 2021 or even dropped, but state harassment of Chinese colleagues and Chinese sources contacted by foreign outlets increased dramatically. Of special concern is the increasing pressure by authorities on local staff working for the foreign media. All of these developments, FCCC concluded, portends badly for coverage, where even the few journalists who are given credentials to live and work in China are unable to safely work with and talk to Chinese citizens. China remains a daunting country for a foreign journalist to cover, and in recognition of the effort and courage it takes to do so, we at FCCJ are very proud to give them this year's award, which will be accepted by Japan-based FCCC member Koichi Yonemura, who I understand is with us in Tokyo right now. Koichi?
Hi, I'm Koichi, and I just came back from China this April, and actually, I was not expecting to make speech because I am here just for sort of a photo opportunity, and since I'm already no longer FCCC board member, and since it's really sensitive, so we cannot reveal the name or affiliation of the current board member. So I am just here to show my FCCC badge. This is, well, we made this badge for last year to celebrate the 40 years of history of FCCC. And so I can't say much, but I am 100% sure that all the FCCC members are very happy and appreciate this award and solidarity that FCCJ showed for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right, we're now moving on to the Japan Lifetime Achievement Award, and we have Andy Sharp to introduce the winner.
Thanks, Isabel. Hi there. I'm delighted to be here tonight to announce that the winner of the FCCJ's Lifetime Achievement Prize is Hisayo Saika. Saika-san joined the Mainichi Broadcasting System in 1987, covering various beats, including education, a subject she has passionately covered now for several decades. In 2015, she became a full-time documentary maker, releasing 18 films to date. She's probably most well known for 2017 film Kyoiku to Aikoku, Kyokasho de Ima Nani ga Okotteiru no ka, Education and Patriotism, What's Happening Now with Textbooks. The documentary won a grand prize at the 55th Galaxy Awards, and she won the 2018 Broadcast Woman Award. Following the film, Saika-san wrote a book based on the film with the even more provocative subtitle of Who's Choking the Classroom? The film portrays history textbooks that covers victims and aggressors in World War II, such as the Nanking Massacre, the Comfort Women issue, and the suicides in the Battle of Okinawa. Such passages regarding these wartime offenses were attacked by the right wing. In her own words, in Japan, where freedom of expression is guaranteed, a lack of freedom is encroaching on textbooks, the main educational material used by children. Through her work, Saika-san has relentlessly campaigned against attempts of historical revisionism by various governments. As a father of 3 young boys myself, all of whom attend local Japanese schools, I want them to grow up learning history, free of prejudice and political interference from either the left or the right. I want my children to learn factually accurate accounts of the past, how we can learn from history. How can we learn from history if the history we learn is varnished? In Saika-san, Japan has someone who is fighting for the education of our children, so they may grow to become better people and build a better country and world. For this reason, the FCCJ is delighted to award Saika-san our Lifetime Achievement Prize. Thank you.
Saika-san, are you there?
She's online, I think.
Oh.
I think.
Yeah, I think she's in Okinawa. But...
毎日放送の西海久代です。今日は東京で参加することができなくて申し訳なく思います。今、沖縄県の与那国島にいます。教科書と教育への政治圧力、政治介入を描いた映画教育と愛国法化、高く評価してくださいましたこと、とても嬉しく、FCJ の皆さんに感謝申し上げます。ありがとうございます。
Oh, Saika-san, I hadn't realized you were going to speak in Japanese.
Notes.
My name is Saika at Mainichi Broadcasting System. I am so sad, I am so sorry that I can't be there attending in Tokyo. I'm right now in Yonaguni Island in Okinawa. And I really thank you so much. The FCCJ has highly regarded my works.
私は大阪の地で、誕生した政党維新の会が、政治主導の、教育改革に、乗り出していくそのプロセスを、ずっと見つめてきました。
I have witnessed the educational reform that was pursued by Ishin no Kai political party that was actually born in Osaka.
維新の会は銃弾に倒れた安倍晋三元総理や、菅義偉元総理とも、深く、政策で、同調をしていて、教育現場で、 さまざまな取り組みをしていた先生たちを、標的にしたり、あるいは、教科書の中身に、政治的介入をしたりしてきました。
Now, Ishin no Kai political party had a very deeply coinciding political policies along with former Prime Minister Abe and former Prime Minister Suga in education, and also in educational fields. There were so many teachers who were trying to promote certain things in classrooms. These politicians targeted these teachers.
先生たちが自由に授業をする、自由に歴史を語るということを、妨げる、政治改革を行ってきたと言えるわけですが、歴史の書き換えというのは今、日本だけではなく、世界的な問題になっていると私は考えています。
Now, the teachers who are trying to teach freely in classrooms and also teaching history the way they think is fit. I think the politicians are trying to reform this, to change this, and into what they want to do. But this is not limited to Japan these days. I believe that this is spreading across the world. This is a global issue these days.
自国にとって都合の悪い、戦争の加害の面を語ろうとすると、その先生に対して、反日ですとか、自虐だとかいった、誹謗中傷が寄せられるこの現状をとても危惧しています。
The politicians, and also there are other people who are targeting the teachers who are trying to teach something that is inconvenient to Japan, and also the teachers who are trying to teach the atrocities, the wartime atrocities. These politicians and others are calling these teachers anti-Japanese, or they defame and slander the teachers.
今もその流れは変わっていないと思います。岸田政権になってからも日本学術会議の任命拒否の問題でさえ解決していません。
Now, I am very concerned with this situation, and this trend has not really changed or improved, even under Kishida administration. I think the example that we can see is the appointment of the scholars for Japanese Nihon Gakujutsu Kaigi, which is Japanese Scholarly Association. This problem has not been solved yet either.
沖縄県で先生たちを取材すると、先生たちは何とかして子どもたちに戦争のない平和な世の中を築けるようにということで、平和教育に力を入れておられます。
Now, when I report in Japan and when I interview teachers, I see that a lot of teachers are trying to teach the children how they can create a society with no war, and they're trying to promote pacifist education.
時に攻撃されることも覚悟しながら、その教えてらっしゃる授業の中で、先日も子どもが平和というのは公平であることだというふうに授業中に意見をしました。
Now, at times, the teachers are knowingly aware that at times they even experience attacks from outside for teaching these classes or these lessons. The other day, I was in a classroom, I was reporting, and I heard that one of the students said, peace means we are equal. It's fair.
フェアであることが平和であることだと意見を言った、子どもの目の輝きを私は忘れることができません。
I cannot forget the shine in the student's eyes when he or she said what it means to be peaceful is to be fair.
教育に対する政治介入というのは、国の形を変えてしまいかねない事態だと危機感を募らせています。ですので、今後も、教育と政治の関係をしっかりと、監視、チェックして報じていきたいと思っています。今日は本当にありがとうございます。
Now, I am very worried that the political intervention in education is going to sometime in the future going to change the shape. It's going to shape the nation, shape this country, and so I am very concerned. And so I would like to continue monitoring the politics and political interventions in education. Thank you very much for today's award.
Thank you, Saika-san.
ありがとうございました。
I'm just going to show you your certificate. I hope you can see it, and your trophy here. This is what you'll be receiving. Thank you very much for your efforts. Thank you. I'm afraid we've completely run out of time. We've gone over an hour, which is our allotted time for this event. So I just wanted to thank everybody so much for taking part today, and especially all our winners for the fantastic work that they've been doing over the past years, and even longer in many cases. If any of the winners would like to join us in the bar, I think we're probably going to have a quick drink with a couple of members. So we'd love to have a chat with you if you have time. Okay, so that will conclude our event for this evening. Thank you very much.